Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast. Real conversations about the grit, grace, and gratitude it takes to be the savvy leader you were always meant to be. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the next episode of the Savvy Leader Podcast. Today, we are joined by Jacki Hayes. She's founder of Jacki Hayes Co, and that's Jacki with an I. And she is a systems strategist for creative service providers. Such an interesting niche, and I can't wait to learn more about it. But Jacki has a great story and an incredible offering for you. And I'm excited to hear all of her insights and how far she's come on her journey. Jacki, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, so I started Jacki Hayes Co. December of 2021. Like everybody else, I have the COVID story. So, we all were sent home. I was working at a university here. I had been there for 14 years, doing all kinds of different forms of administrative support and project management. And when they finally got around to saying, hey, it's time to come back in, I had decided I did not want to go back into the office. I had been commuting for over an hour and a half every single day, if not longer. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I first started as a subcontractor for a virtual assistant agency, and it became fairly obvious pretty quickly that my clients valued my strategic brain over my ability to get stuff done for them. Because every one of our weekly check-in calls where it was supposed to be the list of things that Jacki's supposed to do this week became thought partnerships and, strategy and all of those other things. And so I decided to go out on my own. I went through the OBM certification program with the International Association of Online Business Managers, and realized really strategy was where my brain works, and that I am a systems and process and workflow person. Those things always have just come very easily and very natural for me. And having worked with the folks I did as a virtual assistant, realized that wasn't something that came easy to everybody, and that folks like me are very helpful to visionary folks who have lots of ideas but don't know where step one is. So that is where I am today.
That's so great. And yes, it's so interesting to hear the COVID stories. Now you're 5 years in then of 2021. You got to be pretty coming up on your 5 years. And so you said you started out as a virtual assistant, which sounds kind of practical. I feel like that sounds kind of like probably a common segue into, your kind of industry and the audience that you work with or the people that you work with. Talk a little bit about what it took for you. You mentioned that you got certified with OBM. Talk a little bit about that process and what you learned from it mostly. So you didn't want to go back into the office. You're going to do this thing yourself, damn it, because you're good enough and you can handle it. But yeah, what's it like to kind of go through that process and why did you want to? I mean, you don't have to.
Right. So my number one core value personally and in my business is curiosity. I am a lifelong learner. If anybody is familiar with Clifton Strengths, I have learner, I have intellect, I have input, I have, 4 out of the 5 are in strategy. So the idea of a certification is a gold star for me. So if there's a chance to get certified, I will. I was working as a VA and I was a subcontractor, and as anybody who's ever been a subcontractor knows, you're not making as much as a subcontractor as you could if you were out on your own. And obviously, the person who's running the agency needs to be paid. They're doing all the work of marketing and sales for you. So that's kind of a trade-off. But like I said, my clients wanted strategy from me more than anything. And so I started Googling different options out there. And that is when I ran across online business management. And I thought, well, this sounds more aligned to what the work I'm actually doing right now. And I saw the possibilities of that, but it was such a new concept to me. Like, I had heard of virtual assistants for years. I had been considering virtual assistant for years, but I was the primary breadwinner. I was a single mom, didn't feel safe going out on my own. My son was now, off to college. I didn't have to worry about raising and feeding anybody as much anymore. So it was a good time to jump out there into the world of being a business owner. But I didn't know about this OBM thing. So when I found the certification program, I talked to the folks that were, doing the work, and really felt like I had a lot to learn from them. And that was several months of training from the International Association of Online Business Managers, is where I got my certification from. And a cohort of other people that I learned with and can stay in touch with. We all kind of went our own separate ways, our own different avenues of being an OBM, because there's lots of different ways of doing that. But there is always that background knowledge and the tools and the skills that I got from being certified. I haven't kept up the certification because I don't often work as a strict OBM any longer. But I still know all of those things that I learned and still am able to apply all of that.
That's really interesting. I think it's insightful to understand what prompted you to want to reach out. That, yeah, it's just kind of your MO that you want to go get the certification. I think some of us out here feel like when we look at being self-employed and when we look at kind of counting on ourselves for that income, like you mentioned, being the primary breadwinner, take care of yourself, and supporting your household, having a certification, do you feel like it gives you the confidence, or do you feel like it gives you it's a little bit of leverage, or maybe a little bit of both?
I would say it's a little bit of both. In the world of OBM, I will say that there is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of confusion about what an OBM is versus what a VA is. I hear a lot of people talking about their OBM, and in reality, everything that they're talking about that person doing is really VA work, because we're in the Wild West and we're all making up our own titles in the online business space. And so I felt like certification would distinguish me from others in that I have gone through a learning process to become this. Um, was it necessary? No, I could have done the work. But the other thing that was really helpful to me was, we all have questions that come up with running our business, whether it's how to handle a disgruntled client, or, the best software to use for something. I had this whole network of people now that went through the certification program that I could tap in a Facebook group and say, hey, I have a client who needs X, Y, or Z. Or I have a client who doesn't want to pay me, or all of those scenarios. And I had a group of people who could give me their advice from their own personal experience, having been in similar roles.
So smart. That community to bounce ideas off of and leverage. Are you still engaged with that community or network?
There are a few folks that I am still engaged with. We follow each other on LinkedIn. We see what's going on with others. Then there's other programs that I've been in that it's funny, we circle back around, because would all have been in this one program, and then we went our separate ways. And then we find ourselves back in those programs again. And we're like, how do we know each other? Oh yeah, it's from. And several folks that I know from some of those programs, we've created our own Slack channel, because we're the alumni for all of these different things. We do similar support. It's nice to have somebody, when we go into networking calls as systems people, it's often coaches that we're talking to, or creative service providers. There's not a lot of systems, process, OBM type people in a lot of the networking circles. And so we're like, you know what? We need an Ops United Slack channel. Somebody got that started, invited me in, and it has been a breath of fresh air, because, yeah, when something comes up, I have other ops people who can help me out.
Oh my gosh, so great and so smart. Good for you guys for putting together such a strong cohort and recognizing the need for it, and then also leveraging it. Because oftentimes you can get invited to these things, but they fizzle out because, you got to have some kind of chemistry or energy to get everybody together in the first place and to keep it going. So congrats to you guys in the group for kind of maintaining that. It's inspiring to know that even though you're not face to face, you can still establish those close-knit relationships and rely on people that way. It's so great.
Well, and often folks see other people in their industry as competition. And in
Hmm.
reality, we're all ops people in this Slack channel. But if somebody is like, this person is not a good fit for me, is anybody in here interested in taking on this client? Or my books are full, but I want to make sure I send this person a good referral to someone. Is anybody available? You can support other people in your industry without hurting your own business.
It's such a novel concept, and I think sometimes people are a little bit fearful of letting go of clients for fear they're not going to have enough income. But you're so right. When you embrace that freedom and to choose what makes sense for you and what doesn't make sense for you, you're building a better business for yourself. You're supporting your community. You're just overall, I think, a lot more aligned with yourself and your intentions. And I think it's so much more fulfilling. I was also thinking about you mentioned that you started out as a VA and then you said there's people a lot of times will be OBMs, but then they're really doing VA work. Help us understand then. What is the difference between a VA and an OBM?
Yeah, so I will say, and I'll give you the link to this. I do have an article on my blog that specifically walks people through this. So I will share that with you. But basically, your VAs are the people who implement and they do. They get tasks, they do them. Now, VAs have come a long way and they've specialized. So there are some that do general admin work. And now there are some who focus on marketing. And then there are folks that, focus on social media, whatever it happens to be. But for the most part, when you think about a virtual assistant, those are the people who are going to be doing the things for you. There's a lot of delegation. You need to give them the things to do. They can take ownership after the fact, but you still need to assign things to them. An OBM is a manager, online business manager. They're going to be your thought partner. They're going to be the person that your team connects with before it comes to you so that you can act as the CEO. If you're the founder and CEO and you have a team, if you're the point person for every single person on the team, you're never going to get anything done. So you have somebody like an OBM who knows all your goals, who knows what you have on your plate right now, knows exactly what you're trying to accomplish, and then funnels the information to you that you actually need to have. And if you don't need it as the CEO, well, then the OBM takes care of it for you. So they're going to be management as opposed to execution.
That is amazing. So now I'm thinking of a couple of different things. One is, do you work with a lot of businesses that have a primarily online team, or are you working with teams that are more in person?
Most of my clients, in fact, I would say probably 99% of my clients have teams that are virtual. I work with website designers, social media managers, brand strategists, and all of their team members are from all over the world. So they are managing people in different time zones, different cultures, and it really takes a lot out of them if they are always the point person.
What's that relationship look like with your POC, your primary contact within that company?
So when I am working with somebody on a long-term basis, most of my work that I do now is strategy. It's shorter term. But if I am working with somebody on a longer term basis, the onboarding is really 90 days up to 4 months because we are diving deep into your business. I do not want to be in there supporting you if I don't know you, how you want to run your business, what your goals and visions are, what your values are. I want to know the profitability of all your offers. Is each one making as much money as you think it is? What are your clients saying and where are your clients coming from? We do a full deep dive into your business and then we figure out where to go from there because we're creating a map of where you are right now to where you want to go. And if we don't know where you are right now, that map's not going to work.
Oh, no kidding. And that sounds really extensive. Um, it's got to be really eye-opening. Do you find yourself when you begin that onboarding process, does the company end up making really big shifts in some of the things that they do? Do you have to bring in other people to help, work through some of the hurdles or are there challenges that come along with that? What's that like?
Oftentimes, if they've already had an established team, one of the biggest hurdles is just the team understanding that their roles might change. And if who they quote unquote report to or communicate with on the day to day is no longer the CEO, that doesn't say anything about their role in the company. Sometimes folks will take that as kind of a demotion, and in reality, it's not. It's just helping the company be set for better success. So that is usually one of the challenges. Other things that I've seen, I have a client and we went through the entire process she runs for onboarding her new clients because it took her a month, which was fine. She's a social media manager. She wanted to know her clients inside and out. She wants to make sure she gives them a good strategy. So she was diving into those onboarding for a month, her and only her. She has a team of other like assistant social media managers, but at the time she didn't have any admin or things like that. And what we discovered when we actually mapped out her entire onboarding process was there was an entire week that she didn't actually have to be a part of because they were simple things like creating Google Drives folders and just little tasks like that, creating tasks in ClickUp, or which were coming from a template. And I was like, why? Well, let's just cut that entire week and give that back to you so that you can be CEO and strategist in that week, as opposed to the admin for the week.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that just so fascinating. So now with your clients, do you work with them for the long term? Is this project based? What does that kind of look like? What does your contract or your
Yeah.
relationships continue on as?
So usually like I said, I have short-term projects. I will have strategy calls, or I have a month-long sprintish to help people build out their onboarding process for their clients. And then if they decide they need me for more support, then we negotiate what that would look like based on my availability and what they actually need. There are a lot of folks that will give you a very strict scope of work that they will do, and that is great for them. But usually, by the time I finish working a month with somebody on their onboarding process, we've built a rapport, and I have an understanding of some of the ways that their operations and their systems need to change, and it becomes more flexible. With one of my clients, we are trying to help her build her company. She is the one with the onboarding that we took the week from, and she's growing fast. It's only her second year and she's already got a huge team, and she needed to bring on more support, and she knew the way she was running things was not going to work. And so we have a meeting once a month and we come up with the project that I am going to do for her company. And I set off and I do that thing and I come back at the end of the month and I'm like, here you go. So whether that is building dashboards for helping her track her clients and the metrics that she's getting for them, or it is, this last month I was helping put together a document for her because she's thought, if something happens to me, my partner has no idea what to do inside my business. Whether I'm gone for, appendicitis or something worse should happen. So we were creating a template for that and having her build that out. So there's all different kinds of ways I can support, and it really kind of depends on my capacity, my skills, what I know, and what my clients happen to need at the time.
It sounds like you have everything buttoned up. You're very clear, you're very concise, you're very strategic. You're doing everything that it seems like speaks exactly to your strengths. Now, you mentioned that you took the Clifton Strength Finder. When you went through that process, did you feel like it resonated with you, or was that too like a learning piece for you to like understand those things about yourself and then having to make shifts in the work that you did, and how pivotal was that information into doing what you're now doing today?
I am, if you put a personality typology in front of me, I'm gonna figure out what I am. Whether that's the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagram, the Clifton Strengths, I do them all. For anybody who knows Enneagrams, I'm an Enneagram 5, which means we feel like we need to know all the things, and that we never can know all the things. But what I found, especially I'm an INTJ for Myers-Briggs, and that, while not necessarily scientifically accurate, it's a very small number of women, people who identify as women who are INTJs. And I always felt very like never understood. Nobody got me. And when I started to dive into these personality typologies, I recognized myself, but more importantly, it gave me language to use to communicate myself and my needs and why I am the way I am to other people. So, for instance, anybody who knows input, they would not be surprised by this, or INTJs. We like to gather information and then we like to share that information. And my best friend of like 26, 27 years, when I explained to her that sharing information and knowledge, AKA the hundreds of links to articles that I have sent to her over the years, she's like, oh, now I get it. She's like, I felt so much pressure. And I was like, I don't care if you even read it. This is my way of saying I'm thinking about you and you are important to me. I know you were struggling with A, like 2 months ago, and I found this great article about it. So here you go. That's my love language. So now she gets me in a way that she didn't. She just felt really bombarded by articles from me.
Oh my gosh, I can totally relate to that. I know some people like that, and I can't say that I have done the Clifton's Strength Finder. I probably should, I guess, by the sounds of it. But I think that's so fascinating. You learn so much about yourself, and it sounds like it has really shaped the way that you moved from that point, though, as you continue to learn and you're just kind of grasping onto all this information that you're finding and all the insights you learned about yourself. Talk a little bit about, let's expand on that. Figuring out things about yourself. So, do you find that you're, really digging into these personality tests and quizzes and all these things because it's fun, or is it because you mentioned that you felt misunderstood? Was there some other underlying things that were happening that just really drove you to want to understand yourself better and therefore, be in the world a little bit differently than you had been? I mean, share a little bit about if you don't mind.
Yeah. So, there are a lot of introverts in our world. And when I talk about introverts, I'm not talking about being shy. I'm not even really talking about the draining on our social battery. There is research and evidence that introverts actually think differently than extroverts, that we have differences in our hormone receptors. We are, worn down by dopamine, where extroverts need more dopamine. And our world is really kind of set up for extroverts in reality. And half the population is introverts, sadly. I had a lot of folks who were extroverts in my life, and some of them just kept telling me to try harder. All I needed to do was try harder. And I kept trying to explain to them that there was literally nothing wrong with me. And when I could say to them, look, here's some, articles about what it means to be an introvert. It literally takes longer for a thought to move around in our brain than it does an extrovert because we actually have more connections in there. So we need to stop and pause. You cannot get an answer from us that you really want if you don't give us time to stop and think. So when interviewers for podcasts give us a list of questions that they might ask, super helpful for an introvert because we're going to want to take some time to really think through that. And so explaining to folks these different things and saying, this is not something that's wrong with me. This isn't something to fix. Yes, in some situations I have to mask. I used to be an educator at a science center, which meant 6 hours a day I was standing in front of crowds of people. But it does also mean that there's nothing left for me at the end of the day. So I cannot go out with you and see our friends tonight because I spent too much time being on and masking.
Oh my gosh, so insightful and so just enlightening in the sense that, I mean, you're so in tune to yourself and what helps you to live a more, I feel like, contented, peaceful, fulfilling lifestyle. Um, how does it, so you like to work with creatives, right?
Yes, yes.
Do you find yourself a creative person as well, or are you, I mean, you're also very structured, that's evident. But are you creative too, or how do you blend those things?
Well, yes, I consider myself a creative. I have loved to draw my entire life. My grandmother was a painter, so I've learned how to do oil paintings and watercolors from her. I still love to do those things. I love to write, creative writing as well. So I do have a creative side. For some people, and actually most people, structure around your creativity is a good thing. Um, I can't remember what author it was, but would sit down every single day at the same time to write, regardless of anything came out of their brain. And if I remember correctly, they stripped and put their clothes outside the door so that they couldn't get up and walk around and leave the house, that they were stuck in that room. But there's lots of creatives that do build routines so that they actually have space for that creativity because we all know we get busy. And our creative outlets often are the things that go first because we're just too busy running the kids to soccer or whatever, doom scrolling, quite honestly, and all the other things that we're doing that we're just like, I can do that later. So unless it is your profession, you probably haven't built in structure so that you can enjoy it.
Oh my gosh, that's just incredibly insightful. And to think about just the idea that you've got to, I mean, because it does sound so counterintuitive, like the creative person is usually all over the map, right? They're not structured, but protecting that time to be creative as a creative person helps you again with that, self-fulfillment in your life. Otherwise, you find yourself out of balance. So share a little bit about creativity within the business sense. You're a strategist, so when it comes to getting creative with strategies, how do you approach that?
So I actually ask my clients all of their typologies as well, if they know them, and if not, I encourage them to take some of those assessments. Then I ask them, to read those results and what in those results resonates with them. Because what I have found is people will come to me and they'll say, I need a new system. And, or I actually, what they say is, I need a system. And I point out to them, they already have one. If they've done something more than once, they've created a system. It may not be working, or it may not be working well for them, but they've got one. And so we kind of have to break some habits. But then we actually have to figure out what it is that works for them, because not every way of doing something is going to work well for me as it does for somebody else. Somebody who, has ADHD, like many of my clients, has issues with time, just tracking time and staying, like, I know I need to do this at 3 o'clock, and I'm afraid if I get busy doing this thing, I will miss the 3 o'clock. And now, so I'm just going to sit here for an hour because I'm worried about that 3 o'clock deadline. But if I get involved in something, so then we figure out strategies for how to work around that because they feel like they're wasting an hour of their time. So what can we do? What kind of things can we put into your day so that you don't forget that 3 o'clock timeline? I had a partner who would go deep focus down in his workshop, which was, far, far away because we lived out on a farm. So we put an intercom system in so that I could give him a 10-minute warning that dinner was coming. And so actually I learned it had to be more like a half-hour warning and then a 10-minute warning. But, little things like that, I need to know about my clients. So I actually build things that work for them. They've tried the templates. They've tried all the things that other people say works spectacularly for them. They've tried the tools that worked for somebody else, and they're frustrated and they think it's them. And it's because they haven't built something that actually works for them.
And with that, then I have to wonder, when you go through these strategy sessions, identifying some areas of change, do you get a lot of pushback, and how do you handle the pushback?
Often I don't get pushback because if they can understand why they've been struggling with it, then they're like, it's a light bulb moment. I will use human design with some of my clients, and I have one recently who was struggling with her lead management and just staying on top of communicating with her leads. And she is a generator. Manny gens and generators, we respond. We are not people who initiate. We respond to stimuli. And I said, well, you don't have anything you're responding to. Like you're expecting yourself to initiate a conversation with somebody, but you have nothing to respond to. You are having to work extra hard, and because of it, your brain and your body don't want to do it. It's not how you naturally do it. So how can we build in ways for that to work for you? I'm a Manny Gen, which means I need to respond. So I set up an Airtable of all the contacts I have, and it sends me an automation every Monday of the people I haven't spoken to in the last couple of weeks. And it says, hey, it's time to check in with these people. I'm responding to that email. And I go through those folks and I try and decide, okay, who am I going to talk to this week? And then I go back to our last conversation and say, hey, what can I pick up? What thread can I respond to from that last conversation?
Mm. Well, there's a couple things there. One is it sounds like you've got some great platforms and programs that you utilize on the reg to make sure that you're on track and on task and all the important things. But it also sounds like your approach is that of a collaboration versus someone stepping in and giving direction. So I feel like there doesn't probably a whole lot of conversations then that require you to soften your approach or shift or rethink things because you're actually just kind of working through it. And that's the strategy, right?
Yeah, one of the things that, my clients value about me is I'm a no BS, straight to the point person. I'm going to ask the hard questions and I'm going to expect you to actually think through and give me the answer. And that's why people hire me. I'm not a yes person. I'm going to challenge you. And so often I feel like I'm more of a coach than a strategist or a consultant because I feel like I'm actually pulling the answers out of my clients' heads because my favorite thing to do in the world is to ask questions. It can annoy some of my family and friends because they get a lot of questions a lot of times. But when I'm putting together a strategy, I need to know all the things so I can create the thing that works for you. And so I'm coaching those answers out of you and I'm helping you organize them.
Perfect. Then what if, has there ever been a time that you decided upon a strategy, seemed like it was going to work, but then you needed to make a change along the way because maybe it didn't, or it didn't land properly, or something was missing? Have you ever had to kind of re-strategize?
Oh, the one thing everybody needs to understand about systems and processes in their business is that they are going to change. Whether that is because your team changes, because your offers change, because you change, there's a constant change and shift in every system and every process workflow in your business at some point in time. And so please don't create a system. And when I say system, I'm not talking about just the tool. I'm talking about all the interconnecting parts that make something happen. Don't make it so rigid that it can't evolve with you. So, one example is we had a team of individuals with one of my clients, and we had to shift their roles a little bit to take better, use their skills better and be more efficient with their time so that my client was more profitable. And it took a while. And that meant that some people ended up having to leave because their role was no longer needed. Or they didn't want to shift into the new role. And then when that happened, we had to figure out, okay, so we kind of, we created the role that was best for right now, but if this person's gone now, well, the sky's the limit now. We can open up it a little bit. So what do we actually really need in this moment? And what do we need in 6 months? And what do we need in 2 years? Because we don't want to make something for right now that isn't going to be flexible enough for 6 months from now, or maybe even 2 years from now. So there's always shifts and changes. There's not a single client I've worked with where we haven't had to shift something. We get in, we think a tool is going to be great for them. It works out. It turns out it's not, which is why I never, ever do an annual buy of any tool first, test it for 90 days, then decide. And so that's happened. So we've had to change. It happens all the time. And that's just part of creating a business.
Awesome. And thank you so much for sharing that because I think so many people step into the things. And I love that you just said, I never ever buy into the annual membership or the program or whatever. Just do the 90 days, see how it goes, and allow yourself to work through it with that perspective, I think would probably really help. But listening to you talk about all of the things and all of the energy that you pour into the work you do and your clients and how your best intentions are just you've got to be so drained at the end of the day. How do you reset, recalibrate, or spend your personal time to make sure that you're the best you can be at your biz?
Well, first off, I try to make sure I always have the clients that while yes, there's those two different kinds of draining. The draining, I have nothing left and I did not enjoy any of that and I don't want to ever do it again. And the drained, but I can't wait to do it tomorrow again. And so I try and fill my roster with the clients that I'm drained, but I can't wait to do it again tomorrow. So that is the key thing. And then, I just make sure that I have lots of room in my schedule to enjoy my friends, my family. My partner and I are big giant nerds. We play RPG games. We are big into Gloomhaven right now. We have two groups that we're hosting playing Gloomhaven every other week. We're trying to get D&D back up and again. We have four animals in our house, two cats, two dogs. So they all demand a lot of attention. They all like to snuggle. And anybody who snuggles a cat or a dog knows that really resets your nervous system.
Yes, it certainly does. That is true. And I love that. But I mean, you're just so clear and concise, even about your personal life, that you know exactly who you are, you know exactly where you're headed and what you're doing. What are you most excited about right now in your industry or your future?
Yeah, so for a long, long time, when I came out of the certification as an OBM, I thought, oh, I'm going to start an agency. And as time went on, I talked myself out of it. In the past, I had a bad experience being a manager of folks, and I thought, well, this just isn't me. Like, I don't want to manage people. I'm just going to be a one woman show. I'm going to be solo. Maybe I'll bring on a VA, because too often I was finding myself in the worlds where you were creating a business to sell the business. And while that's great for some people, I was like, I'm doing the things that I actually love to do on a day to day basis with the people I really enjoy spending time with. I don't want to do that. I still want to be in my business and the person that my clients talk to. So I can't do agency. I'm not good at managing and whatever. Um, and then the more I got to thinking about it and the more I got to talking to different coaches, etc., I realized, well, that experience, one, was when I was in my 20s, and two, was completely different. And also, I was being a yes person. My clients don't need a yes person. They need a person who's going to challenge them, that's going to say, yeah, that's a great idea, but your goal is this for this quarter. If we stop what we're doing to do this new idea, then this goal isn't going to be reached. And so I have to be that kind of a person. And when I realize that my clients now want that from me, need that from me, I realized, okay, no, it's time to start working on building that agency. So that's where I am right now, is transitioning from being a solopreneur, one woman show, to creating an agency that's going to provide ops support and system support to all kinds of service providers.
How exciting and congratulations. I mean, that's incredible. Listen to you going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing with kind of a clear and concise pathway, but recognizing it's okay to shift and change and be flexible while at the same time holding true to your values and what is meaningful for you in day-to-day work. Congratulations. That's huge. Not everybody allows themselves that freedom of choice, and yet you have. So what an accomplishment. What does your agency look like now going forward? And what's your long-term vision?
Yeah, my long term vision is to make the agency a reality in 2 to 3 years. And what I am looking at is complete ops and system support. Project managers, virtual assistants, tech VAs, all of that thing within my team so that you can hire me. And then you don't have to go out and look for all those other things because I have a team that I have trained. So you know that they're all going to be the quality that I am because I am overseeing them. I'll be the head strategist. I will be the head project manager. And then the face and the CEO of my own business, which means I will hire my own OBM so that I can make sure things are getting done and I'm still the CEO. So.
And look at that big smile on your face. Just the thought of it lights you up. I think it's just fantastic. Okay. So what kind of advice would you give someone looking at doing, whether it be a virtual assistant, an OBM, any kind of online business that's similar to your own? What kind of advice, or what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
Uh, I think the thing that I wish I had known then was, even though I'm a systems person and operations person, and that's what I want to be doing, if you own your own business, at least for a little while, you're going to have to be all the things. So, yes, you're going to have to learn how to be a marketer, and you're going to have to learn how to be a bookkeeper, and you're going to have to learn how to do sales, because your business isn't going to last very long if you don't know how to do all the things. But then, as soon as you can, bring on those people to help you out.
Wise advice. I think that's just fantastic. All right. Where can we get in touch with you? If anybody looking to have a discussion with you or even just kind of be in your world.
Well, I make it super, super easy. People can go to my website, JackiHayes.co, and that's Jackie with no E. And there at the top is a tab that says Start Here. If they click on there, they will get everything they need to learn about me, about my services, blog articles, my index of services, all those different things. So make it super easy for everybody.
That's great. You know, Jackie, you are grounded, you are honest, and you are unapologetically structured. And it's suits you to a T. And I'm so grateful to have you today sharing your insights so openly. I'm grateful. And I think our audience too will feel a lot better about understanding the difference between a VA and an OBM and whether which one works best for their business or whether or not they're thinking about jumping into the online world like yourself for the same kind of reasons. Our world is always changing, isn't
It
it?
is.
You just never know what's in store. But with that, though, one last thing. What are your thoughts on AI and how has that impacted the work that you do with your clients? Has it been good? Has it been bad? Or is it kind of a non-issue for you?
It's really, I think anybody who does use AI is not unaware of the issues that come with using AI. Um, we are in a day and age where pretty much everything we do requires a data center. A lot of folks are up in arms about AI using it. And yes, they should be, but so is our Netflix, so is our Instagram, so is our websites. All of those things are using data centers. So I believe that there needs to be policies around that so that they're not as environmentally unhealthy to us. Also, just standards of how you are going to use AI in your business. I do use it. It helps me a lot, but you're still getting my brain when you work with me. I have an AI policy that I share with all my clients so they know exactly how I'm going to use AI in supporting them, including transcripts, which all of those transcripts we use, those are AI generated. And so they know going in. And if they have a concern about it, we can either talk it out or I'm just not the right fit for them. So I use it where it can help me. I'm aware of all the issues around it and hope that those things can be settled and taken care of because it's here to stay.
It certainly is. And I think when used properly, it can really help a person um, give themselves a leg up because, using AI just for the basic things and then just letting it run is not the way to go. Using AI to enhance your skills, to make you a little bit better, dig a little bit deeper, offer something more robust. That's where you find the gold, I think, in AI is you really using it, but still keeping yourself doing all the things you would have normally done, but just enhancing that with AI. And I think you got a real winner there. So good for you. And I love that you're transparent and upfront with your clients about it because you're right, it's here to stay. And, whether we agree with it or not, we better figure out a way to use it and be comfortable with it.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I'm so grateful for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Thanks for listening to the Savvy Leader podcast. Be sure to check out the description for any relevant links and additional details that we might have shared throughout this week's episode. And if you're looking to continue this conversation, we'd love to see you over at the Savvy Leaders Lounge on Substack or the Savvy Living Network for additional insights. That's savvylivingnetwork.com. We'll see you there.